It was 3 in the morning when my phone buzzed against the nightstand. I wasn't asleep. I rarely slept well when the seasons changed. In Chicago, the shift from autumn to winter brings a specific kind of heaviness to the air, a pressure that settles in your bones. I rolled over and looked at the screen. The name flashing there was one I hadn't seen in 5 years. Dad. I let it ring. Once. Twice. The vibration rattled the glass of water next to the lamp. My name is Rowan. I am 38 years old, and for the last half-decade, I have run a successful, quiet company called Apex Systems. We build back-end architecture for mid-sized logistics firms. I have a clean apartment, a healthy bank account, and a life entirely free of the chaos that defines the Kincaid family. The phone stopped ringing. Then, immediately, it started again. I knew what this was. Victor Kincaid, the great CEO of Kincaid Logistics, did not call his estranged child at 3 in the morning to catch up on the weather. He called because he was drowning. I picked up. "What do you want, Victor?" I didn't call him Dad. I hadn't since the day he told me that my obsession with coding and systems was blue-collar work and that I lacked the executive presence to ever sit at his table. "Rowan," his voice was slurred. "Whiskey. Expensive whiskey, but the effect was the same as the cheap stuff. You need to come home." "I am home," I said, sitting up and rubbing my eyes. "I live 10 miles away. You're the one who pretended I moved to Mars." "The business," he said, and I heard a tremor in his voice that I had never heard before. Victor was a man who commanded rooms. He was a man who wore $3,000 suits and laughed loudest at his own jokes. But tonight, he sounded small. "It's bleeding, Rowan. The quarterly report. God, it's a bloodbath. $4 million in the red. The bank is calling the loan." "Sell it," I said cold. "You have assets. Sell the fleet. Retire to Florida like you always threatened to." "I can't," he whispered. "It's your mother's legacy. If I sell, they'll strip it down for parts. They'll erase her name from the trucks." That was the hook. He knew it. He knew exactly where to slide the knife. Kincaid Logistics wasn't built by Victor. It was built by my mother, Eleanor. She was the one who mapped the routes on the kitchen table when I was a kid. She was the one who negotiated the first contracts with the unions. Victor was the face, the handshake, the smile, the 3-martini lunch. But Mom was the engine. When she died 6 years ago, the engine stopped, and the car had been coasting on momentum ever since. "Why are you calling me?" I asked, though I already knew. "Because everyone else is incompetent," he snapped, the old arrogance flaring up for a second before fading back into desperation. "The dispatch system is broken. We're losing drivers. We're losing clients. I need someone who understands the machine. I need the person who helped Eleanor build the first database." I closed my eyes. I could see the spreadsheet my mother and I made when I was 12. "If I come down there," I said slowly, "I'm not coming as your child. I'm not coming to be yelled at because my tie isn't straight or because I don't schmooze the investors. I'm coming as a consultant." "Anything," he said. "Just fix it. Please, Rowan. Don't let her company die." I hung up. I sat in the dark for a long time, listening to the wind howl off Lake Michigan. I knew it was a mistake. I knew that walking back into that building was like walking into a burning house to save a photo album. But it was my mother's house. I got out of bed and made coffee. I didn't know it then, but that phone call was the beginning of the longest year of my life. It was also the first step toward the most expensive lesson Victor Kincaid would ever learn. 7 hours later, I walked through the double glass doors of Kincaid Logistics. The building used to smell like fresh paper and possibility. Now, it smelled of stale coffee and panic. The reception desk was empty. A phone was ringing somewhere in the distance, an incessant, shrill line that no one was answering. I bypassed the elevator and took the stairs to the operations floor. It was chaos. Actual, physical chaos. Dispatchers were shouting over each other. One guy was slamming his handset against his desk repeatedly. On the main wall, where we used to have a state-of-the-art digital tracking board, someone had taped up paper maps of the tri-state area. They were using pushpins to track trucks. Pushpins. In 2024. Where is the driver for the medical supply run? Someone yelled. He quit, another voice screamed back. He said the app crashed 3 times and he's not driving blind in a snowstorm. I stood by the door, observing. It was worse than Victor had said. This wasn't a company in trouble, this was a corpse that hadn't realized it was dead yet. Excuse me, a voice chirped from my left. You can't stand there. That's the fire lane. I turned. Standing there, holding a tablet and a matcha latte, was Bella. My sister. I hadn't seen Bella in 3 years. She was 26 now. She looked exactly like our mother, the same blonde hair, the same delicate features, but she had none of Mom's grit. Bella was wearing a designer sweater that probably cost more than a forklift driver's monthly rent. Hello, Bella, I said. She blinked, lowering her sunglasses. Rowan? Oh my God. Dad said you might stop by. She didn't hug me. She looked me up and down, assessing my plain gray coat and waterproof boots. You look practical. The company is burning down, Bella, I said, gesturing to the room where a dispatcher was currently crying into her headset. Why are you looking at, is that a rug catalog? She clutched her tablet to her chest. It's for the executive suite. Dad says we need to project confidence. If the office looks successful, clients will believe we're successful. It's called optics, Rowan. Though I wouldn't expect you to understand that. What is your job here? I asked. I'm the director of strategic vision, she said, lifting her chin. Strategic vision, I repeated. Does that vision include fixing the fact that we have $4 million in debt and drivers quitting mid-shift? That's operations, she waved a hand dismissively. That's the plumbing. I handle the brand. Daddy says I'm the face of the future. Daddy. Just then, the door to the corner office opened. Victor stepped out. He looked older than he had on the phone. His skin was gray, his eyes rimmed with red. But he was wearing a perfect navy suit and a silk tie. Rowan, he boomed, trying to summon the voice of the CEO. You made it. He walked over, ignoring the chaos behind him, and put a hand on my shoulder. It felt heavy. Dad, the servers are down, Bella interrupted, pointing at her phone. I can't upload the new logo concepts to the cloud. Rowan will fix it, Victor said, squeezing my shoulder. That's why Rowan is here. To fix the plumbing so we can do the real work. I looked at him. I looked at Bella, sipping her $7 latte while a 20-year veteran dispatcher sobbed at her desk. We need to talk, I said to Victor. In your office. Now. And bring the legal pad. Legal pad? Victor frowned. We aren't doing this on a handshake, I said. If I'm cleaning up this mess, we're doing it on my terms. Victor's smile faltered. Always so transactional, Rowan. Fine. Come in. I followed him. I didn't look back at Bella, but I could feel her eyes on me. She didn't see a sibling. She saw a mechanic. She saw hired help. And frankly, she wasn't entirely wrong. I was the help. But they forgot that the help carries the keys to the house. Victor's office was a shrine to himself. Photos of him shaking hands with governors, holding oversized checks, cutting ribbons. There was only one photo of Mom, tucked away on a bookshelf behind a stack of golf magazines. I sat down and didn't wait for him to offer me a drink. I pulled a document out of my briefcase. I had drafted it at 5 a.m. What is this? Victor asked, eyeing the thick staple-bound papers. I'm not coming back as an employee, Victor, I said. I own a company. Apex Systems. This is a business-to-business service agreement. Victor laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Rowan, don't be ridiculous. I was going to offer you the VP of Operations title. It comes with a parking spot. I don't want a parking spot. I want autonomy. I pushed the contract across the mahogany desk. Here is the deal. Apex Systems, my company, will license a custom logistics framework to Kincaid Logistics. I will come in as the lead architect to install, manage, and overhaul your entire operation. I will report only to you. Not to the board, and certainly not to the Director of Strategic Vision. Victor bristled. Bella has good instincts. Bella ordered Persian rugs while your drivers are using paper maps, I countered. Read the contract, Victor. He sighed and put on his reading glasses. He flipped through the pages quickly. Too quickly. He was looking for the salary number. The fee is reasonable, he muttered, tapping a line on page 2. Standard consultant rates. The money isn't the important part, I said. Look at section 4, paragraph 2. He didn't look. He just waved his hand. Legalese. Standard liability stuff, I assume? Read it, Victor. He groaned, skimming the text. Something about intellectual property. Apex retains ownership of the code, license is revocable. Yes, Rowan, I know how software works. You build it, we use it. He didn't understand. He didn't see the teeth in the trap. The clause actually read, the operational framework remains the sole intellectual property of Apex Systems. Kincaid Logistics is granted a revocable, non-transferable license to utilize said framework. This license is contingent upon the continued presence of an Apex Systems designated lead architect. In the event of an unauthorized change in operational leadership or termination of the lead architect without mutual written consent, Apex Systems reserves the right to revert the software to restricted mode immediately. In plain English, if you fire me, or if you try to replace me with someone unqualified, the system locks down. It basically says I'm the landlord of the software, I said, simplifying it for him. You're renting the engine. If you stop paying the mechanic, the engine stops. Fine, Victor said, reaching for his gold fountain pen. You always had to complicate things with rules. Your mother was the same way. Always read the fine print, Victor, check the compliance logs, Victor. It's exhausting. He signed it with a flourish. He didn't even ask a lawyer to review it. He was so desperate to have someone else handle the crisis, and so arrogant in his belief that he could control his children, that he signed away the keys to his kingdom without blinking. One more thing, I said, taking the signed contract back and sliding it into my bag. I have full authority to fire anyone in operations who is incompetent. No matter who they are related to, or who they play golf with. Victor froze. Now, hold on. Jerry has been running the warehouse for 20 years. Jerry is the reason you're losing $4 million, I said. I saw him downstairs. He was asleep in the break room while 3 trucks sat at the dock with no paperwork. He goes, or I walk. Victor stared at me. He looked at the contract, then at the chaos outside his glass walls. Do what you have to do, he whispered. Just turn the profit arrows green again. Done, I said. I stood up. Rowan, he said, just as I reached the door. I turned. Don't think this makes you the boss. You're here to fix the mess. Once it's clean, we'll see about your long-term place here. Don't get too comfortable. I never get comfortable, Victor, I replied. That's why I'm good at this. I walked out. I had the contract. I had the authority. Now, I just had to do the impossible, save a company that had spent 5 years trying to commit suicide. The first week was a bloodbath. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. I lived on black coffee and adrenaline, setting up a temporary command center in a conference room that hadn't been used in years. My first target was the warehouse management structure. Or rather, the lack of one. The vice president of warehouse operations was a man named Jerry. Jerry had been Victor's college roommate 40 years ago. He was a nice man who told great fishing stories, but he hadn't looked at an inventory report since 2010. I called Jerry into the glass-walled office at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday. "Rowan," he grinned, leaning back in his chair, his feet on the desk. "Good to have you back, kiddo. Your dad says you're here to sprinkle some computer magic on the place." "Sit up, Jerry," I said. His smile faded. He slowly took his feet off the desk. "I've been reviewing the logs," I said, placing a single sheet of paper in front of him. "We have an inventory shrinkage rate of 12%. The industry standard is 2%. We are bleeding merchandise. Either you are stealing it, or you are too incompetent to notice it's being stolen." Jerry's face turned red. "Now wait a minute. I run a loose ship, maybe, but I trust my guys." "That's the problem," I said. "You trust. You don't verify. You're fired, Jerry." He laughed. "You can't fire me. I was best man at your parents' wedding. I'm going to call Victor." "Go ahead," I said, pointing to the phone. "Call him. Tell him you lost $400,000 in inventory last quarter." He called. I watched him argue, plead, and then go silent. Victor, for all his loyalty to his cronies, loved money more. He knew I held the contract. He knew I was the only thing standing between him and bankruptcy. Jerry packed his box 20 minutes later. The mood in the warehouse shifted instantly. The drivers stopped joking around. The loaders started wearing their safety vests. They realized the vacation was over. I walked down to the loading dock floor. I needed a new lieutenant. I found him near Bay 4, a guy named Marcus who was manually checking manifests with a clipboard because the scanners were down. "Marcus," I said. I remembered him from years ago. He was hardworking, quiet, and sharp. "Rowan," he nodded, not stopping his work. "Heard you walked Jerry out. Bold move." "I need a new director of operations," I said. "Someone who knows where the bodies are buried. Someone who actually knows how the logistics software is supposed to work." Marcus stopped. He looked at me, wiping grease from his hands onto a rag. "You offering?" "I am. But I'm warning you, Marcus. I'm going to install a new framework. It's going to be brutal. We're going to track every pallet, every mile, every gallon of gas. No more skimming, no more buddy deals. Can you handle that?" Marcus cracked a smile. "I've been waiting 5 years for someone to actually run this place. When do we start?" "Now," I said. "Get the team together. We're doing a hard reset." By Friday, I had fired 3 more executives, VP of sales, who spent all day at the country club, the HR director, who was Bella's godmother and refused to file paperwork, and the IT manager, who didn't know what a cloud server was. The office was quieter. It was tense. But for the first time in a decade, things were actually moving. Upstairs, in the executive suite, Bella was busy redecorating Jerry's old office. She ordered a $4,000 standing desk and a white leather sofa. I let her do it. As long as she stayed out of the server room and didn't touch the dispatch schedules, she could play office all she wanted. I had a company to save. November turned into December, and Chicago did what Chicago does best: it tried to kill us with cold. The forecast called for a historic blizzard. 20 inches of snow in 24 hours. In the logistics business, snow is the enemy. It slows trucks, freezes docks, and delays shipments. But for Kincaid Logistics, the real threat wasn't the roads. It was the basement. The company's main servers, the physical brains of the entire operation, were located in the basement of the headquarters. It was a terrible design choice made by Victor in the 90s to save money on cooling. We need to migrate to the cloud, I told Victor 2 days before the storm. If that basement floods, or if the power grid fails, we go dark. We won't be able to route the trucks. The cloud is expensive, Victor grunted, looking at the budget proposal. Can't we just buy a generator? A generator doesn't stop water, Victor. And it doesn't back up data in real time. Pass, he said, waving me off. We've survived blizzards before. Spend the money on driver overtime. I walked out of his office. I didn't argue. I didn't have time. I went straight to Layla in accounting. Layla, I said. How much discretionary budget do I have under the emergency maintenance code in my contract? She tapped on her keyboard. About $50,000. Why? I need to buy server space. Amazon Web Services. I'm migrating the database tonight. Without Victor's approval, she raised an eyebrow. The contract gives me operational autonomy, I said. If I'm wrong, I'll pay for it myself. If I'm right, I save the company. I spent the next 48 hours in the server room. I didn't go home. I slept in 20-minute bursts on a camping chair Marcus brought in. I wrote scripts to pull data from the dusty, humming physical towers and push it into the secure cloud architecture I had built at Apex. The storm hit on a Thursday evening. The wind howled like a jet engine. The power flickered and died at 8 p.m. The backup generator kicked in, coughing smoke. Then, at 2 a.m., a pipe burst in the ceiling above the server rack. Water cascaded down onto the machines. Sparks flew. The smell of ozone and frying silicon filled the room. Marcus ran in, shouting. Rowan! The servers are frying. We're losing the fleet. I sat calmly at my laptop, tethered to a mobile hotspot. Relax, Marcus. Relax? The screens are black. We have medical supplies stuck on I-90. Switch your tablet to the new URL, I said, not looking up. Login is the same. He fumbled with his device, typing in the new address. He hit enter. The dashboard loaded instantly. The map populated with green dots showing every truck's location via GPS. Holy! Marcus breathed. It's all there. Real time. I migrated the last packet 10 minutes ago, I said, finally closing my burning eyes. The basement can fill with water for all I care. The brain is safe. Upstairs, on Instagram, I saw a post from Bella. She was wearing a designer cashmere onesie, holding a mug of cocoa by a fireplace in her condo. The caption read, "Snow days are for self-care. Stay safe everyone. #bossbabe #logisticslife." I looked down at my clothes. I was covered in dust, grease, and insulation. My hands were shaking from caffeine overdose. But the trucks were moving. We delivered 6 tons of insulin and emergency medical supplies that night while our competitors were paralyzed. Victor never thanked me for the migration. He just complained about the $50,000 bill from Amazon until the insurance check for the flooded basement came in. Spring arrived, and with it, the Titan contract renewal. Titan Retail was our whale. They accounted for 40% of our revenue. If we lost them, we died. And word on the street was that they were shopping around. Their VP of Logistics, a woman named Sarah Jenkins, was tired of Kincaid's past errors. Victor's strategy was typical. "I'll take Sarah to dinner at Alinea," he said, adjusting his tie in the mirror. "Bottle of vintage wine, some charm, remind her of the good old days. She'll sign." "Sarah Jenkins doesn't care about wine, Victor," I said. "She cares that her Q4 shipping costs were up 8%. She's a data person." "Let me come." "You?" Victor laughed. "You'll bore her to death with spreadsheets." "No, Bella is coming. She's good at conversation." I didn't ask for permission. I just showed up at the restaurant. When I walked in, Victor looked furious. Bella looked annoyed. Sarah Jenkins looked bored. "Sorry I'm late," I said, pulling up a chair. I didn't order a drink. I placed a tablet on the table. Rowan, we were just discussing the summer gala, Bella said icily. I'm sure that's fascinating, I said. But Sarah, I wanted to show you why your costs were up 8% last year. Sarah's eyes sharpened. She ignored Victor's attempt to pour her more wine. Go on. Your previous carrier was routing trucks based on shortest distance, not fastest time, I said, swiping on the tablet to show a simulation I'd built. They ignored traffic patterns and weather data. My new system, the Apex framework, predicts delays before they happen. In the last 3 months, since we implemented the beta version, your on-time delivery rate went from 82% to 99.4%. I pushed the tablet toward her. It showed a projection. If you renew with us, I guarantee a 15% reduction in fuel surcharges. That's a savings of $2 million a year. Sarah stared at the numbers. She scrolled through the data. For 5 minutes, silence hung over the table. Victor, Sarah said, finally looking up. Why haven't you shown me this before? Well, it's a new initiative, Victor stammered. Rowan is leading the technical side. Technical side? Sarah laughed. This isn't technical, Victor. This is money. This is the only reason I'm not signing with FedEx tomorrow. She pulled a pen from her purse. I want this projected savings written into the contract. And I want a clause that says this specific system, the Apex framework, remains the primary operating standard. Of course, Victor said, sweating. Whatever you want, Sarah. We walked out of that dinner with a 5-year contract worth $50 million. In the parking lot, Victor loosened his tie. He looked relieved, but also resentful. You undermined me in there, Rowan. I saved you in there, I corrected. You made it look like I didn't know my own business, he snapped. Do you? I asked. He didn't answer. He just got into his Mercedes. Bella lingered, looking at me with a strange expression. Not gratitude. Calculation. That was a nice trick with the tablet, she said. Clients really like the nerdy data stuff, huh? It's not a trick, Bella. It's the job. Right, she said, checking her reflection in the car window. Well, good work. Dad is happy. That's what matters. By the 14-month mark, Kincaid Logistics was unrecognizable. The warehouse was efficient. The fleet was modernized. We were profitable, wildly profitable. The debt was cleared. The Titan account was performing beautifully. I had practically lived in that building for over a year. I knew every driver by name. I knew which coffee machine dispensed the good roast. I felt, foolishly, like I was part of something. Victor's attitude softened. He started inviting me to Sunday dinners at the estate. He bragged about the company's turnaround in Forbes and the Wall Street Journal. The Kincaid comeback, the headlines read. How Victor Kincaid steered his family legacy through the storm. My name was never mentioned in the articles. I told myself it didn't matter. I was the architect, not the billboard. I had the contract. I had the respect of the people who actually did the work, Marcus, Layla, the drivers. But I noticed shifts. Subtle ones. Bella started attending the Monday morning operations meetings. At first, she just sat there. Then, she started taking notes. Then, she started asking questions. Not dumb questions, but specific ones. How do we access the admin panel? Where are the vendor passwords stored? What is the renewal date for the Apex license? I answered them vaguely. It's all automated, Bella. You don't need to worry about it. I'm just trying to learn, she would say, smiling that sugary smile. Dad says I need to understand the whole business. One afternoon, I walked into the server room and found 2 strangers in suits looking at the racks. Can I help you? I asked, standing in the doorway. They jumped. Oh, we're consultants. From Deloitte. Mr. Kincaid hired us to do an efficiency audit. I didn't authorize an audit, I said. I'm the lead architect. No one touches these servers without my sign-off. We're just looking, one of them said, closing his laptop quickly. I marched to Victor's office. Why are there auditors in the server room? I demanded. Victor didn't look up from his paperwork. Just standard due diligence, Rowan. We're thinking of expanding. Investors want to see independent verification of our assets. My software is the asset, I said. And it belongs to Apex, not Kincaid. We know, Victor waved his hand. Relax. You're so paranoid. Everything is fine. In fact, you've been working too hard. Why don't you take a vacation? Go to Cabo for a week. The gala is coming up next month. You should be rested for it. I don't need a vacation, I said. Take a break, Rowan, he said, and his voice had that finality to it. That's an order. Let Bella and Marcus handle things for a few days. The system runs itself now, right? That's what you told me. It's automated. I should have seen it then. He wasn't asking if it was stable. He was asking if I was still necessary. Fine, I said. I'll take a long weekend. I didn't go to Cabo. I went home and slept for 16 hours straight. It was the deep, dreamless sleep of the exhausted. I didn't know that while I slept, the knives were being sharpened. Author's note: if you are enjoying this story and want to see more content about corporate revenge and family drama, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, leave a comment below telling me which city you are listening from. Every comment helps this video reach more people. Thank you so much. When I returned from my long weekend, the atmosphere in the office had curdled. It wasn't chaos like before. It was something more insidious. It was fear. Marcus met me at the door. He looked stressed. You need to check the routing logs, he whispered, looking over his shoulder. Why? What happened? Bella, he said. She authorized a vendor change for the packaging supplies. And she manually overrode the driver schedules for the Midwest region. I stormed to my desk and logged in. The screens were full of alerts I hadn't received because someone had disabled my email notifications. Bella had switched our packaging supplier to a company called Luxbox. I looked them up. They were 30% more expensive than our current vendor, and their boxes were technically weaker. But they offered custom branding options. Then I looked at the driver schedules. She had rerouted trucks to avoid ugly industrial zones so that the fleet would be seen on high-visibility highways. I marched into Bella's office. It smelled of lavender and expensive candles. Did you change the driver routes? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. Oh, hi Rowan, she beamed. Yes. Isn't it great? I realized our trucks are moving billboards. Why have them drive through cornfields when they can drive through the suburbs where our brand can be seen? Because the suburbs have weight limits and traffic lights, Bella. I shouted. You added 40 minutes to every delivery. That burns fuel. That causes late penalties. You are burning money for vanity. It's not vanity, it's brand awareness, she sniffed. Dad approved it. I went to Victor. She is ruining the efficiency rating, I told him. We are going to miss our KPIs for the Titan account. Victor sighed, rubbing his temples. Rowan, calm down. It's a trial run. Bella is trying to modernize our image. You handle the back end, let her handle the public face. The public face doesn't matter if the packages don't arrive. You are being territorial, Victor said, pointing a finger at me. She is your sister. She has a degree in art history. She understands aesthetics. You understand code. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. That was the phrase. It rang in my ears for days. I realized then that no matter how much money I saved them, no matter how perfectly the system ran, I would never be the face. I was the grease in the gears. Dirty. Necessary. Invisible. I went back to my desk. I reversed Bella's changes quietly. I locked the routing permissions so only I could edit them. Bella came by an hour later. I can't seem to update the map, she said, frowning. Must be a glitch, I lied. I'll look into it next week. She glared at me. It was a look of pure, unadulterated malice. She knew I had locked her out. And she knew she didn't have the technical skill to bypass me. She spun around and walked away. We'll see about that, she muttered. I didn't know it then, but she didn't go to IT support. She went to Daddy. And they began planning the final move. The 40th anniversary gala of Kincaid Logistics was the social event of the season. It was held at the Palmer House Hilton in downtown Chicago. Crystal chandeliers, velvet drapes, champagne towers. I arrived early, not to drink, but because Victor had asked me to ensure the audiovisual presentation works. So, while the guests arrived in tuxedos and gowns, I was on my hands and knees behind the stage, taping down HDMI cables and syncing the projector. Hey, excuse me, a waiter said, tapping my shoulder. Staff entrance is through the kitchen. I stood up, dusting off my knees. I was wearing a $2,000 suit, but apparently, I still gave off the vibe of the help. I'm Victor Kincaid's child, I said dryly. The waiter looked skeptical but shrugged. Right. Sorry. I went to the back of the ballroom and stood in the shadows. I watched them enter. Victor looked regal, shaking hands, laughing, clapping men on the back. Bella looked stunning in a gold-sequined gown, floating through the room like a princess. No one approached me. The clients I had saved, the people from Titan Retail, the vendors, were all surrounding Victor. Victor, amazing year. The turnaround is legendary. How did you do it? And Victor would smile and say, well, it takes a steady hand at the wheel. Vision. Discipline. He never said, my kid Rowan stayed awake for 3 days during a blizzard. He never said, my kid Rowan built the software that runs your business. I saw Marcus near the bar. He looked uncomfortable in a rented tuxedo. He walked over to me. You okay, boss? He asked. I'm fine, Marcus. Just enjoying the show. Something feels off, Marcus murmured. I saw the program for tonight. They printed new business cards for Bella. It says Chief Operating Officer. My stomach dropped. That's my title. Well, lead architect, but the responsibilities are mine. Yeah, Marcus said, looking at his drink. I asked around. No one wanted to tell me anything. Watch your back tonight. The lights dimmed. The music swelled. A spotlight hit the stage. Victor walked up to the podium. The applause was thunderous. Welcome, friends, partners, family, Victor began. His voice boomed. 40 years. 40 years of delivering promises. I leaned against the wall. I had a bad feeling. The kind of feeling you get right before a car crash. I checked my phone. I opened the Apex admin app. Everything was green. The system was perfect. Little did I know, the system wasn't the problem. The user was. This year has been our most challenging, Victor said, his voice dropping to a theatrical whisper. We faced bankruptcy. We faced the storm of the century. But Kincaid Logistics did not falter. Behind him, the massive screen displayed a graph. It was my graph. The one I had generated last week showing the revenue spike. But the watermark generated by Apex Framework had been cropped out. Success is not an accident, Victor continued. It requires leadership. It requires a fresh vision for the future. A vision that combines our rugged history with modern elegance. He paused. He looked out into the crowd. He looked right past me. That is why, tonight, I am making a historic announcement. As we move into our next phase of growth, Kincaid Logistics needs a leader who embodies that future. Someone who understands the brand as well as the business. He swept his arm toward the side of the stage. Please welcome the new Chief Operating Officer and my designated successor, Bella Kincaid. The room erupted. Bella walked onto the stage, waving, pretending to be surprised. She hugged Victor. They posed for the photographers. I stood frozen. My blood ran cold. Coup? That was the role that controlled the entire operational scope. That was the role I was doing. That was the role that, under my contract, could not be filled by anyone else without my consent. Victor leaned into the microphone again. And I want to thank everyone who helped us get here. Our drivers, our staff. And of course, Rowan, who has been assisting with the technical transition over the past year. Rowan will be stepping down from day-to-day operations to pursue other, independent projects. Let's give Rowan a hand. The applause was polite, mechanical. A few heads turned to look for me. Stepping down? I hadn't agreed to step down. I hadn't resigned. He was firing me. Publicly. He was framing it as a mutual decision to save face, while simultaneously handing my job, my life's work, to his daughter who thought logistics was about vibes. I didn't clap. I didn't wave. I turned around and walked out of the ballroom. I went straight to the VIP holding room behind the stage. I knew they would come there after the speech for a toast. I waited. 5 minutes passed. The doors burst open. Victor and Bella walked in, laughing, high on adrenaline and adoration. They stopped when they saw me. Rowan? Victor frowned. You should be out there mingling. People are asking where you are. Stepping down? I asked. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a razor. I didn't know I was stepping down, Victor. Victor sighed. He gestured for Bella to give us a minute. She didn't leave. She stood by the champagne bucket, smirking. It's for the best, Victor said, loosening his bow tie. Look, you did a great job fixing the plumbing. Really? Excellent work. But we're in a growth phase now. We need polish. Bella can talk to the investors. You scare them, Rowan. You're too intense. I saved this company, I said. I own the systems that run it. And we appreciate it, Bella chimed in. But really, Rowan, do you want to be stuck in a warehouse forever? Daddy is doing you a favor. You can go back to your little computer startup. My little startup is the only reason you aren't bankrupt, I said, stepping closer to Victor. You signed a contract. Section 4. You cannot replace the lead architect without my consent. Victor laughed. He actually laughed. Oh, Rowan. Contracts are for strangers. We're family. Besides, who are you going to sue? Your own father? With what money? I have an army of lawyers. You have a laptop. He reached into his pocket. You want value? Here. He pulled out his wallet. He fished around and pulled out a single, crumpled bill. A $1 bill. The room went silent. The hum of the air conditioning seemed deafening. Victor held the dollar bill out to me. It wasn't crisp. It was old, wrinkled, soft with age. What is this? I asked. Severance, Victor sneered. Consider it a bonus. You're a mechanic, Rowan. Mechanics get paid by the hour. Leaders get paid in equity. You aren't a leader. You're the help. Always have been. He flicked his wrist. The dollar bill fluttered through the air. It hit my chest and fell to the floor, landing near my boot. Take it, he said. Go buy yourself a toy. A new keyboard. Whatever it is you people use. I looked at the dollar. George Washington stared back at me from the carpet. In that moment, something inside me broke. But it wasn't my heart. It was my restraint. For 38 years, I had tried to prove I was worthy of his name. I had built a company. I had saved his legacy. I had worked until my hands bled. And to him, I was worth $1. I bent down. Slowly. Look at that, Bella giggled. He's actually picking it up. I picked up the bill. I smoothed it out. I folded it neatly in half. I looked at Victor. His eyes were cold, triumphant. He thought he had won. He thought he had crushed me. He thought that by humiliating me, he had established his dominance once and for all. He forgot one thing. He forgot who owned the keys. "Thank you, Victor," I said. My voice was steady. Terrifyingly steady. "Thank you for the clarity." "Good," Victor said, turning his back to me to pour a glass of champagne. "Now run along. We have donors to meet. Security will revoke your badge in the morning. Don't make a scene." "I won't make a scene," I promised. I put the dollar in my pocket. I looked at Bella. "Congratulations on the promotion, Bella," I said. "I hope you know how to drive." "I hire people to drive for me," she replied dismissively. "Right," I said. I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I walked through the kitchen, past the staff who nodded at me, out into the cool Chicago night. I hailed a cab. "Where to?" the driver asked. "Home," I said. I sat in the back seat, clutching the dollar bill in my hand. It felt hot, like it was burning my skin. Victor thought the contract was just paper. He thought the Section 4 clause was just legal jargon. He didn't understand that it wasn't a legal threat. It was a technical trigger. He had just publicly announced an unauthorized leadership change. He had done it on video. He had done it in front of witnesses. And he had fired the only user with admin privileges. I looked at my watch. It was 11 p.m. By the time the sun came up, Victor Kincaid would realize that a car, no matter how polished, no matter how expensive, is just a 2-ton paperweight if you take out the engine. He wanted me to leave? Fine. I would leave. But I was taking my engine with me. My apartment was quiet. The kind of quiet that rings in your ears. I didn't turn on the lights. I walked straight to my home office, the blue glow of my monitors illuminating the room like a cockpit. I sat down in my ergonomic chair, the one Victor had made fun of once, calling it a gamer chair, and placed the crumpled $1 bill on the desk next to my keyboard. It was 11:45 p.m. The gala was likely winding down. Victor and Bella were probably clinking glasses, toasting to their new era. I opened my laptop. I logged into the Apex Central Command. The dashboard for client, Kincaid Logistics, was green. Active. Healthy. Uptime, 99.9% active users, 412 pending shipments, 1,204. I navigated to the License and Governance tab. It was all there. Hard-coded into the kernel of the software. I hadn't hidden it. It was right there in the documentation they never read. Protocol Omega, unauthorized leadership transition. I clicked the edit button next to the license status. A prompt appeared, warning. Changing license status to restricted will limit functionality. This action is irreversible without an admin key. Proceed? I didn't hesitate. I didn't feel guilty. I felt precise. I typed in the reason code, violation of contract section 4.2. Unilateral termination of lead architect. I hit enter. The status bar changed from green to amber. New status, read-only mode. Effective, immediately. What does read-only mean in logistics? It means you can look, but you can't touch. The warehouse scanners would still turn on, but they wouldn't accept new inputs. The dispatch software would show the map, but it wouldn't allow new routes to be plotted. The printers would stop printing bills of lading. It wasn't a virus. It wasn't malware. It was simply the software revoked its permission to create. I watched the server logs. 12 a.m. Nothing happened. The night shift was quiet. 12:15 a.m. A ping from the server. User J_O attempted to scan item number 4492. Error, write permission denied. 12:16 a.m. Another ping. Error, write permission denied. 12:20 a.m. 50 errors. I leaned back in my chair. I imagined the confusion on the warehouse floor. A forklift driver scanning a pallet and hearing that angry beep beep beep. Trying again. Rebooting the scanner. Thinking it was a glitch. It wasn't a glitch. It was the sound of a company dying. I closed my laptop. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. I stared out the window at the Chicago skyline. Somewhere out there, in a penthouse suite, Victor was sleeping the sleep of the victorious. Enjoy it, Dad. Because when the sun comes up, you're going to find out that your shiny new car doesn't have a steering wheel. I woke up at 7 a.m. I showered, shaved, and put on a fresh suit. Not because I was going to work, but because I expected company. At 7:45 a.m., my phone rang. It was Marcus. I answered. Morning, Marcus. Rowan, what is going on? His voice was tight, panicked. The scanners are dead. The printers are dead. I have 20 trucks at the bay doors and I can't print a single manifest. The drivers are threatening to walk. The scanners aren't dead, Marcus, I said calmly, pouring coffee. They're in read-only mode. Read-only? What does that mean? It means the software license has expired due to a violation of terms. You can see the data, but you can't change it. You can't process new orders. Violation of terms? Marcus paused. I could hear the gears turning in his head. The announcement last night. Bella. Smart man, I said. Rowan. Victor is going to kill you. Victor can try. But right now, Victor has bigger problems. Tell the drivers to turn off their engines. Nothing is moving today. I hung up. At 8:15 a.m., the first text from Bella arrived. Hashtag urgent. The system is glitching. Fix it ASAP. Dad is furious. I didn't reply. At 8:30 a.m., she called. I let it go to voicemail. At 8:45 a.m., Victor called. I answered this time. Rowan. He was screaming. I could hear sirens in the background. What did you do? The warehouse is paralyzed. We're losing $50,000 an hour. I didn't do anything, Victor, I said. The system is functioning exactly as designed. Don't play games with me. Fix it. Now. I can't fix it, I said. I'm not an employee anymore. Remember? I stepped down. I'm just a mechanic with a $1 severance package. This is sabotage, he roared. I'll sue you. I'll have you arrested. Read the contract, Victor. Section 4. Paragraph 2. Upon termination of the lead architect, the license reverts to restricted mode to protect Apex Systems' intellectual property. You fired the architect. The building locked its doors. There was a silence on the line. A heavy, terrified silence. What do you want? He asked, his voice shaking. I don't want anything, I said. I'm enjoying my time off. Goodbye, Victor. I hung up. I turned off my phone. I sat on my couch and opened a book. I read the same page 4 times without absorbing a word. I wasn't calm. My heart was hammering against my ribs. But I knew I had to hold the line. At 9:30 a.m., my landline rang. Only 3 people had that number. I picked it up. Hello? Rowan. It was Sarah Jenkins from Titan Retail. Her voice was ice. Hi, Sarah. My trucks aren't moving. Victor is screaming about hackers. Bella is crying in the bathroom. I need the truth. Is this permanent? It depends on Kincaid Logistics, I said. They are currently in violation of their software license. Until they rectify the leadership structure, the system stays locked. Okay, Sarah said. I don't care about your family drama. I care about my goods. If those trucks don't move by 5 p.m., I'm triggering the penalty clause. That's $500,000 a day. And I'm voiding the contract. I understand, I said. Fix this, Rowan, she said. Or I'll hire you directly and bankrupt your father myself. She hung up. That was the leverage I needed. The Titan. I turned my cell phone back on at noon. 47 missed calls. 30 voicemails. The latest text from Victor was different. No threats. No screaming. Please come in. We need to talk. Boardroom. 1 p.m. I didn't rush. I finished my lunch. I put the $1 bill in my breast pocket. I arrived at Kincaid Logistics at 1:15 p.m. The parking lot was a disaster. Trucks were backed up to the street. Drivers were standing in groups, smoking, looking angry. I saw a news van setting up near the gate. Channel 9 News. The story was leaking. I walked through the lobby. The receptionist, a new hire Bella had picked for her looks, was sobbing into the phone. I don't know when it will be back up, sir. Please don't yell. I took the elevator to the top floor. The boardroom was tense. The air conditioning was on full blast, but everyone was sweating. Victor sat at the head of the table. He looked like he had aged 10 years since last night. His tie was undone. His face was gray. Bella sat next to him. Her eyes were red. She wasn't wearing her Boss Babe blazer anymore. She looked like a scared child. 2 lawyers I didn't recognize were there, along with Marcus, who gave me a subtle nod. You're late, Bella snapped, her voice cracking. I'm a freelancer, I said, pulling out a chair. I make my own hours. Cut the crap, Rowan, Victor said. His voice was hoarse. Turn it back on. I can't, I said. Not under the current agreement. We'll sue you for damages, one of the lawyers interjected. This is malicious interference with business operations. I looked at the lawyer. Did you read the contract? We are reviewing it, he stammered. Then you know that Apex Systems owns the code. You are using it under a revocable license. You violated the terms. I didn't break the system. You forfeited your key. I turned to Victor. Sarah Jenkins called me. Victor flinched. She called you? She told me that if the trucks don't move by 5 p.m., she voids the Titan contract. That's 40% of your revenue gone. Plus penalties. You'll be insolvent by Friday. Victor put his head in his hands. Rowan, why are you doing this? We're family. Family? I reached into my pocket. I pulled out the $1 bill. I smoothed it out on the polished mahogany table. Last night, you told me this was my value. $1. You told me I was the help. You told me I wasn't a leader. I slid the bill toward him. I'm returning your severance, Victor. I don't want your dollar. What do you want? Victor whispered. Do you want the CEO job? Is that it? You want to sit in my chair? God, no, I laughed. I don't want your job. I don't want to spend my days golfing and lying to investors. I want to build systems. I pulled a new document from my briefcase. Here are the terms for reactivation. Victor looked at the paper. His eyes widened. This is extortion. No, I said. It's the market rate for a critical service provider who was wrongfully terminated. Victor read the terms aloud, his voice trembling. 1. A new 5-year exclusive license agreement with Apex Systems. 2. The monthly licensing fee increases by 400%. 400%. Bella shrieked. That's robbery. It's the asshole tax, I said calmly. It's the price you pay for insulting the architect. Victor continued reading. 3. Apex Systems retains full veto power over all operational leadership appointments. 4. Bella Kincaid is permanently barred from holding any operational role involving the logistics framework. She may retain her title of Strategic Vision, but she will have no administrative access to the system. Read-only access only. Bella stood up. You can't do that. This is my company too. Daddy, tell him. Victor looked at Bella. He looked at the window where the line of stalled trucks was visible. He looked at the clock on the wall. 1:45 p.m. Titan would walk in 3 hours. Sit down, Bella, Victor said quietly. Daddy. Sit down. Victor roared. It was the first time I had ever heard him yell at her. Bella shrank back into her chair, shocked into silence. Victor looked at me. Is that it? One more thing, I said. Item 5. A public retraction of last night's statement. You will issue a press release stating that Rowan Kincaid remains the chief technical partner and that the stepping down announcement was an administrative error. Victor closed his eyes. It was the ultimate humiliation for a man like him. Admitting he was wrong. Admitting he had lied. And the fee, he asked. An immediate reactivation fee of $500,000. Wired to Apex Systems. Now. We don't have that much cash on hand, the lawyer said. Then sell the Bentley, I said to Victor. Or ask Bella to return the rugs. Victor stared at the $1 bill on the table. He picked it up. His hands were shaking. He crumpled it in his fist. You've become a cold bastard, Rowan, he said. I had a good teacher, I replied. Victor turned to the lawyer. Draw it up. Wire the money. Victor, are you sure? The lawyer asked. Do it. Victor slammed his fist on the table. Before we lose the Titan account. The next 30 minutes were a flurry of typing, printing, and signing. I watched them scramble. It was pathetic. The great Kincaid empire, brought to its knees by a PDF file and a text editor. At 2:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. A notification from my bank. $500,000 received from Kincaid Logistics. I checked the signed contract. Everything was in order. I opened my laptop right there on the boardroom table. I logged in. I went to the License tab. I typed in the reactivation key. Status, active. It's done, I said. Marcus's radio crackled on his belt. Hey Marcus? The printers just woke up. Scanners are green. We're live. Marcus let out a breath he seemed to have been holding all day. He looked at me and winked. I closed my laptop. I stood up. Pleasure doing business with you, I said. I didn't shake Victor's hand. He was staring at the table, defeated. Bella was crying silently, her mascara running down her face. I walked to the door. Rowan, Victor said. I paused. Don't come to Sunday dinner, he said. I wouldn't dream of it, I said. I'll be busy counting my money. I walked out of the boardroom and the office felt different. The panic had evaporated, replaced by the hum of productivity. I stopped by the warehouse floor. The drivers were climbing back into their cabs. Engines were roaring to life. The smell of diesel fumes, usually noxious, smelled like victory. Marcus walked me to the exit. You really banned her from the system? Marcus asked, grinning. Banned her IP address, her email, and her device ID, I said. If she tries to log in, it redirects her to a 404, competence not found page. Marcus laughed, a deep belly laugh. You're a legend, boss. The guys are going to drink to you tonight. I'm not the boss, Marcus, I reminded him. I'm just the vendor. You're the boss now. Run a tight ship. Count on it. I walked out to the parking lot. The news van was packing up. The crisis was averted. To the outside world, it was just a technical glitch. A minor hiccup. But inside the building, the power dynamic had shifted permanently. Victor was still the CEO, but he was a figurehead. He knew it. The board knew it. And every time he signed that monthly check to Apex Systems, now 5 times larger, he would be reminded of it. Bella kept her job, technically. She still sat in her office with the white leather sofa. But she was a ghost. The staff ignored her memos. The drivers rolled their eyes at her brand initiatives. She was the director of strategic vision, but her vision was limited to picking out the font for the holiday party invitation. I heard later that Titan Retail sent a fruit basket. Not to Victor. To me. With a note that said, "Thanks for the uptime. Sarah." It has been 6 months since the glitch. My life hasn't changed much on the surface. I still live in the same apartment. I still work late nights coding. But I bought a new chair. And I framed the $1 bill. It hangs on the wall of my office, right next to the Apex Systems logo. It's not a trophy of war. It's a reminder. A reminder that value is not determined by someone else's opinion of you. Value is determined by leverage. Victor and I don't speak. We communicate through lawyers and invoices. He pays on time. He has to. Bella blocked me on Instagram. I consider that a bonus. Sometimes, late at night, I look at the server logs for Kincaid Logistics. I see the green lights. I see the trucks moving across the map like little heartbeats. It's a healthy system. It's a legacy my mother would be proud of. She built the heart of the company. I built the armor that protects it. I lost a father that night, and I lost a sister. But in truth, I had lost them long before. I just hadn't accepted it. The $1 bill was simply the receipt for a transaction that had happened years ago. I charged my own father $500,000 to turn a switch back on. He calls me a monster. He tells his friends at the country club that I am an ungrateful snake who held the family hostage. Maybe he's right. But every month, when that wire transfer hits my account, I think about the drivers who kept their jobs. I think about the medical supplies that got delivered during the blizzard. And I think about the moment he flicked that dollar at me and told me to buy a toy. I didn't buy a toy. I bought my freedom. So, here is the question I leave you with. I saved the company. I was insulted, fired, and replaced by someone incompetent. I used the legal contract I wrote to force them to pay me what I was worth, plus a massive pain and suffering tax. I destroyed my relationship with my family to protect my work and my dignity. Am I the jerk for charging them the asshole tax? Or did I just finally give them the bill they deserved? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed seeing the Golden Girl get a reality check and a greedy CEO pay the price, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow. And don't forget to let me know in the comments, would you have taken the $1 bill, or would you have thrown it back? See you in the next story.